Welcome to the deep dive.
Today, we're diving into a fascinating conversation from LlamaCon 2025.
Right, the closing session.
Yeah, featuring Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Meta, and Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft.
And this wasn't just some casual chat. It was a pretty significant discussion between two of the biggest players in the tech world. They share their perspectives on the future, the hurdles they see, and the potential breakthroughs on the horizon.
And our mission here is to pull out the most important insights from that conversation, the aha moments that help you understand the bigger picture. Even if terms like neural network make your eyes glaze over, we want to give you the essential understanding without, the overwhelm.
Makes sense.
So where did these two tech giants even begin their discussion about the future of AI? What was the starting point?
Well, a really insightful starting point was something Satya Nadella brought up pretty much right away. He compared this moment we're in with AI to other major shifts.
Okay.
Other big shifts in technology that we've seen in the past. Things like when we moved from individual computers to networks, client server.
Right, or the internet explosion.
Yeah, exactly. The web, the shift to mobile phones, and of course, the widespread adoption of cloud computing.
Okay, so he's saying this feeling of rapid change, it's not exactly new. We've kind of been here before in tech.
Precisely, yeah. He described it as a recurring relitigation of the entire technology foundation.
Relitigation. Meaning,
Think about it, when the internet took off, it wasn't just about new websites popping up, right?
no, it was way bigger than that.
It required building completely new infrastructure, developing new kinds of software, and fundamentally rethinking how systems were built and connected.
So it's like every time one of these massive changes happens, you have to go back to the basics and reinvent things in a lot of ways.
That's the core idea. And what's really striking about this AI revolution is just how quickly it seems to be unfolding. Nadella even used a phrase, hyperdrive Moore's law.
Hyperdrive Moore's law. Okay, I've heard of Moore's law, the idea that chips get faster predictably.
Right. Traditionally, it was about the number of transistors you could fit on a microchip roughly doubling every couple of years.
Which meant computers kept getting faster and cheaper.
Exactly. But Nadella is suggesting that the rate of improvement in AI is accelerating even faster than that.
Wow.
And it's driven by a whole bunch of factors happening simultaneously. It's not just the chips themselves getting more powerful.
No, that's happening too, right?
Yeah.
With NVIDIA and Jensen, AMD, and Lisa Su.
Absolutely. They're constantly pushing those boundaries. But it's more than that.
Okay, so what else is contributing to this feeling of everything being in hyperdrive?
Well, he pointed to advancements across the entire system that powers AI. Things like big improvements in the software that manages these, massive collections of computers working on AI.
The fleet software, yeah.
Smarter designs for the AI models themselves, the actual algorithms that learn, and even fundamental tweaks at the very core, like in the computer's operating systems, the kernels, to make them run AI tasks more efficiently. And then you have clever tricks at the application level, like finding faster ways to access and reuse instructions you've given the AI before.
That was the prompt caching thing.
Exactly, prompt caching.
Wow, so it's not just one single component getting a boost. It's like the whole engine is being supercharged in all these different ways at once.
That's it. And when you put all these compounding improvements together, Nadella estimates, well, he thinks we could potentially see a 10-fold increase in AI capabilities every 6 to 12 months.
10 times better every 6 to 12 months. That sounds almost unbelievable. So what does that actually mean for someone like me? What's the impact?
It means that the kinds of things AI can do and how well it can do them are going to improve dramatically and very, very quickly.
So tasks that seem hard for AI now.
Exactly. Think about writing complex creative stuff, having truly natural and helpful conversations, analyzing huge amounts of data. These things could become significantly easier and more effective in a really short period.
Okay.
And the implications of this increased efficiency are huge. As AI becomes more efficient to run, the cost comes down.
It means more people use it.
Which leads to it being used more widely, yeah. And this opens the door for what Nadella referred to as deep applications.
Deep applications. What's the idea there?
Think of it as AI becoming deeply woven into all sorts of software and services we use, capable of handling really complex tasks.
Okay.
And even working together with other AI systems behind the scenes, which leads us nicely to their discussion about AI agents.
Okay, so we're moving beyond just asking an AI a simple question and getting a direct answer. It's more interactive.
Precisely. Nadella described AI agents in a way that's pretty easy to grasp. Imagine digital assistants that can actually take actions for you.
Actions, like booking things or summarizing emails automatically.
Yeah, even across different apps and services. And to make this happen, we're seeing the development of multi-model application.
Multi-model, meaning different AIs working together.
Yeah, where different AI models, each maybe specializing in different things like understanding text, analyzing images, generating code, can collaborate.
Ah, so it's like assembling a team of specialists, but the team is made up of different AI brains working together.
That's a perfect analogy. Early AI applications tended to rely heavily on just one big all-purpose model.
Right.
But now the focus is shifting towards orchestrating how different, more specialized models can work in concert.
How do they coordinate that?
Well, there are even some technical standards emerging, things with names like MCP and A2N.
Okay, jargon alert.
Yeah, without getting bogged down in the details, they're essentially ways for these different AI systems to communicate and understand each other more effectively.
Like agreed upon languages so different AIs can talk?
In a simplified sense, yes. That's a good way to think about it. And this ability to mix and match different AI models for different tasks is something Nadella is clearly enthusiastic about.
Because it lets you build better apps.
Much more adaptable and powerful applications, yeah. Which then naturally led them to a really interesting discussion about open source versus closed source AI models.
Okay, this is something I hear about a lot in the tech world, but maybe not everyone gets the difference. What's the basic distinction for someone who isn't a coder?
Think of it like this. Closed source models are like proprietary software. The inner workings, the code that makes them run, are kept secret and controlled by the company that created them.
Okay, like a black box, almost.
Sort of, yeah. Open source models, on the other hand, are like open source software. The underlying code is made publicly available.
So anyone can see it.
Anyone can use it, study it, modify it, build on it.
Okay, got it. It's like the difference between a secret family recipe that only one restaurant knows and a recipe that's published in a cookbook for anyone to try and even adapt.
That's a very clear way to put it, yeah. And Mark Zuckerberg brought up Microsoft's own shift towards embracing open source under Nadella's leadership.
Which was a big deal for Microsoft.
A huge deal. And Nadella explained his thinking by drawing a comparison to the past. He mentioned how important it was for Microsoft's Windows operating system to be able to work smoothly with different versions of another operating system called Unix.
Okay.
His point was basically that customers expect things to work together, regardless of who made them. Interoperability.
And he sees that same need for different AI models to be able to work together, whether they're open or closed source.
Exactly. He doesn't really see it as like one being inherently better than the other.
Interesting.
He believes both open and closed source models have important roles to play in the future of AI. And ultimately, what customers need and want will drive the demand for both types.
That's about choice.
And he even pointed out that many big companies, enterprises, they want to take existing open source AI models and fine-tune them using their own private data.
Fine-tune them. What does that involve, roughly?
We'll touch on this more later when we talk distillation, but for now, think of it as taking a general-purpose AI model and training it further on specific information.
Your company's data, maybe?
Exactly, to make it really good at a particular task or for a specific industry. And the key point Nadella made is that using open source models for this gives these companies more control.
Control over their own valuable information and ideas.
Right. They get to keep their IP, their intellectual property, closer. So he envisions a future where we have both incredibly powerful, cutting-edge, closed-source AI and equally impressive open-source frontier models.
Frontier models meaning the really advanced ones.
Yeah, the ones pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So it's not really a competition between open and closed, but more like a diverse ecosystem with different options for different needs.
That's the perspective he put forward. And Microsoft's Azure platform, their cloud platform, aims to be a major provider of the computing power and services needed to run AI, what they call a hyperscaler.
Right.
They want to support this diversity by offering both open and closed source AI options, along with all the necessary tools for developers to build and use them.
So it's about giving developers choices and the support they need, no matter which path they choose.
That's the goal, which, naturally led the conversation to Azure's specific role in the overall AI landscape beyond just offering models.
Right, because we always hear about these amazing AI models, the brains. But what about the actual hardware and systems needed to make them work?
that's a critical piece of the puzzle. Running these advanced AI models isn't just about the algorithms and the specialized AI accelerator chips that power them.
Like the GPUs.
Exactly. It also requires a massive amount of other infrastructure, like huge amounts of digital storage for all the data they learn from.
Terabytes, petabytes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Regular computing power for various support tasks and incredibly fast networks to connect everything together efficiently.
This whole system.
It is. And Nadella emphasized that Azure's goal is to provide world-class infrastructure across all these areas to support the next generation of AI-powered tools, these agents we talked about.
So it's like building the roads, the power grid, and all the underlying utilities for the AI revolution.
That's a very apt analogy, yeah. He also introduced this idea of an app server specifically for AI.
An app server for AI, like we used to have for web apps.
Kind of similar, yeah. They're calling it Foundry. He explained that in past major technology shifts, there's always been a need for something that packages up essential services and makes them easy for developers to use.
A toolkit, almost.
Think of it as a pre-built toolkit, exactly. It provides things like search capabilities within AI systems, ways to manage the AI's memory or context,
Okay.
built-in safety features, tools for evaluating how well an AI model is performing, stuff you need over and over again.
So instead of every developer having to build these fundamental components from scratch for every AI app,
Right.
they're provided as ready-to-use building blocks.
Exactly. Saves a lot of time and effort. And they also highlighted GitHub Copilot as a really important tool for developers in this AI-driven world.
Copilot, that's the AI coding assistant.
Yeah, it started as something that helps programmers complete their code, suggesting lines or blocks.
Which is already pretty useful.
Hugely. Then it evolved to include chat features where you can ask it coding questions or ask it to explain code. And now it's even moving towards what they call agentic workflow, where it can help automate more complex software development tasks.
Like fixing bugs or writing tests.
Potentially, yeah. And Nadella stressed how crucial it is to integrate these AI tools directly into the existing workflows that developers are already familiar with.
Right, fitting into how they already work.
Exactly.
It sounds like AI isn't just about creating entirely new things, but also about making the existing processes, like building software, much, much more efficient. And that then led them to a broader discussion about how AI is impacting productivity in general, right? Beyond just coding.
Yes, absolutely. Nadella shared some really significant productivity gains that Microsoft has seen internally just by using GitHub Copilot. And he reiterated how it's evolved, from just suggesting lines of code to being a more interactive chat assistant, and now moving towards these more autonomous agent-like capabilities. But the key point he kept coming back to was that these tools need to seamlessly fit into how developers currently work and the systems they already use, like GitHub itself.
It's not enough to just have a fancy AI tool off to the side. It has to integrate smoothly into people's existing habits and processes. Otherwise, people won't use it.
Precisely. And this boost in productivity isn't just limited to software development. Nadella gave a great personal example of how AI is changing knowledge work.
Knowledge work, like office work, information-based jobs.
Exactly, the kind of work many of us do with information. He described how preparing for, say, customer meetings used to involve a lot of manual reading.
Sifting through reports, emails.
Yeah, reports that were often put together by hand, maybe outdated. Now he uses internal AI-powered tools like their Copilot to get a real-time summary of all the relevant information from various sources, the web, their internal customer relationship management system, emails, documents, all synthesized.
Wow. So it's cutting out a huge amount of the time-consuming work of just gathering and synthesizing information.
Right. He emphasized that this requires a fundamental shift, though, in how we create documents and manage our workflows.
A change in habits.
A big one. He even drew a parallel to how the introduction of email and spreadsheets dramatically changed how businesses operated.
Like how they did financial forecasting you mentioned.
Yeah, that was his example. He believes we're at a similar turning point with AI now. And they also mentioned seeing tangible progress in other areas.
Right.
Customer service, creating marketing materials, generating various kinds of content. Things are moving fast.
It's fascinating to think about how these basic tools we rely on every day might be completely transformed by AI. They even talked about how much of the code at Microsoft is now being written by AI, didn't they?
Yes, that was pretty striking. Nadella estimated that somewhere between 20 to 30% of the code in their internal systems is now being generated by AI.
20 to 30%.
Yeah. And maybe even more importantly, the rate at which developers accept this AI-generated code is steadily increasing.
So they trust it more.
It seems so. And he also mentioned that AI is increasingly being used to help review code for errors and improvements.
So AI reviewing AI code sometimes.
And human code, too. Then Mark Zuckerberg chimed in, sharing that Meta is heavily investing in using AI to speed up the development of their own large language models, like Llama.
Using AI to build AI faster.
Exactly. And he predicted that within the next year, perhaps as much as half of their model development work could be done by AI.
That's a massive shift in how software and these complex systems are created.
It really is. Nadella then speculated a bit on the types of tasks AI might handle well in the near future. He suggested things like optimizing existing code.
Making it run faster or use less memory.
Or identifying security vulnerabilities. Those seem like likely candidates for AI assistance soon. Whereas more groundbreaking tasks like, say, inventing entirely new AI model architectures.
The really creative novel stuff.
Yeah, that might still require more human ingenuity for the time being. But it led to a really interesting point about how their development tools and underlying infrastructure like GitHub might need to evolve.
Evolve how?
To better support these AI agents doing more of the work. Perhaps even rethinking the fundamental concept of how software projects are organized in systems like GitHub repos.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like AI isn't just changing what we create, but the very tools and processes we use to create it.
That's a great way to put it.
And this also connects to their discussion about how the lines are blurring between different kinds of digital content, right? Like documents, apps, and websites.
Exactly. They brought up a question that Bill Gates has apparently pondered for a long time. What exactly is the difference between a document, an application, and a website in the digital age?
Yeah, it's getting fuzzy.
It really is. Nadella pointed out that with the rise of AI chatbots and other intelligent tools, these distinctions are becoming less and less clear.
How so?
Well, he shared a personal experience of starting with a simple chat conversation with an AI,
Okay.
and then using that chat history to automatically generate a structured document. And potentially, that document could even evolve into a simple application later on.
So it's a much more fluid and less rigidly defined process. From chat to doc to app.
Precisely. The idea is that you can start with a high-level intention or a goal, maybe just a conversation, and end up with a living artifact.
A living artifact.
Yeah, something that can adapt and take on different forms and functionalities as needed. Nadella expressed his vision, or maybe dream, of moving beyond these artificial categories we've created for software.
Like Word, Excel, PowerPoint being separate things.
Exactly. He even revisited the question of why we have traditionally had separate programs like that. He suggested that AI could enable much more integrated experiences.
Where functionalities blend together more seamlessly.
Yeah, imagine starting a calculation in what looks like a document and it just works. The key takeaway is the increasing malleability. The adaptability of digital content.
It's like our digital creations are becoming much more flexible and less confined to these traditional separate boxes. That's pretty cool.
It is.
Now, zooming out even further, they also talked about the long-term impact of AI on the economy, right? On things like GDP. And Nadella brought up a really interesting comparison to electricity.
Yes, he did. Nadella emphasized that for AI to have a truly significant and widespread impact on the economy, like really move the needle on GDP growth, we need to see substantial increases in overall productivity across the board. He framed it as the world needing a new fundamental factor of production.
Like labor or capital, but AI.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Something as transformative as those. To help us address the big global challenges we face, he even posed this thought experiment.
Okay.
What would it take for the developed world to achieve a sustained economic growth rate of, say, 10%? He believes AI has the potential to drive those kinds of significant productivity gains across various industries, but he cautioned that this requires not just the technological advancements themselves, but also significant changes in how we build software and how we manage our businesses.
So it's not enough to just have the powerful technology. We also need to figure out the best ways to integrate it into our work and our economy, adapt our processes.
Exactly right. And that's where the electricity analogy came in.
How did that work?
He pointed out that while electricity was discovered much earlier, it took around 50 years, maybe more, for it to truly revolutionize industries.
50 years. Wow.
Yeah. He gave the example of Henry Ford's radical redesign of factory layouts. That assembly line concept was only really possible by fully leveraging the flexibility of electric power instead of relying on older power sources like steam engines with belts and shafts.
So the tech existed, but it took time to reimagine the process around it.
Exactly. While Nadella is hopeful that AI's impact will be felt much faster this time around.
We hope so.
We're likely still in the early stages. We're probably beyond just the horseless carriage phase, just slapping AI onto old ways of doing things. But we haven't fully redesigned everything around AI yet.
That's a really good reminder. These really fundamental shifts take a significant amount of time to fully unfold and reshape our world.
Kind of, yeah. One of the concepts that kept coming up in their conversation was this idea of a distillation factory.
Yeah, this is a really key idea, especially when we talk about making advanced AI more widely accessible, democratizing it. Think of distillation in AI as a process where you take a very large, incredibly powerful AI model, imagine like a super genius, one of these huge frontier models.
Right, the massive ones that cost millions to train.
Exactly, and you use it to train smaller, much more efficient versions of it that can still perform very well, maybe on more specific tasks.
So you're capturing the core intelligence, capturing the essence, the key knowledge of that complex system, and packaging it into something more manageable and easier and cheaper to run. And Nadella sees this as a key role for open source AI models to play, because you can take a powerful open source model and then distill it for your specific needs. He envisions Microsoft building tooling as a service.
Like software tools anyone can use.
Yeah, readily available software tools to make this distillation process much simpler and more widespread. He gave an example.
What was that?
How every user of Microsoft 365 could potentially have access to these smaller, distilled AI models, tailored for tasks they need to do within those applications, all powered by Copilot.
So, specialized mini AIs for everyone based on the big ones.
That's the vision. And Mark Zuckerberg also jumped in, emphasizing the power of distillation. He pointed out that these smaller models can often achieve a surprisingly high percentage, maybe 90%, 95% of the intelligence or capability of the much, much larger ones they were distilled from.
Wow, really? That close?
On specific tasks, yeah. Which is incredible when you think about the size difference.
So what are the big advantages then of having these smaller distilled AI models? Why is that so important?
Well, there are several key benefits. Firstly, and this is huge, they are much cheaper and more energy efficient to run.
So less computing power needed.
Way less. Which means they can run on less powerful hardware, like your laptop, maybe even your smartphone eventually, rather than needing giant data center.
That really opens things up.
It really does. Because right now, like you said, only a handful of very well-funded research labs and big tech companies have the massive computing infrastructure needed to train and run these huge, cutting-edge AI models.
So distillation democratizes access.
Exactly. It lowers the barrier significantly, allowing many more developers and companies to leverage advanced AI capabilities without needing billions in hardware.
Makes sense. Any other benefits?
Secondly, it opens up the potential to take the best strengths from different large AI models.
Oh, like mix and match.
Potentially, yeah. Distilling specific capabilities from multiple teacher models into smaller, more specialized student models.
So it's about making really powerful AI more accessible and more adaptable for a much wider range of uses and devices.
Precisely. Nadella emphasized that Microsoft's focus is on building the necessary tools and underlying infrastructure, that distillation factory service, to lower the barriers and enable greater flexibility in how AI models are created and used.
What are the challenges there?
Well, one of the big ones they discussed is just the incredible speed of innovation. Newer and improved base models are being released constantly.
Right. Llama 3, GPT-5, whatever's next.
Exactly. Developers need tools that allow them to quickly adapt and distill knowledge from these new advancements without being stuck using older, less capable models. You need to be able to update your distilled models fast. And Zuckerberg also made a really practical point. He mentioned that the underlying structure, the shape, as he called it, of these very large AI models is often designed to run optimally on very specific and expensive hardware.
Like Meta's own massive clusters of NVIDIA H100s.
Right, whereas the open source community and smaller companies need models with different designs, different shapes, that can run efficiently on a wider variety of maybe less specialized equipment.
So you need different sizes and types.
Definitely. He even mentioned their internal Little Llama project at Meta as an example of the importance of having AI models in different form factors for different use cases.
Got it. So it sounds like this distillation factory concept is really key to unlocking the full potential of AI for a much broader audience, not just the big tech players.
I think that's a fair assessment, yeah.
They also briefly touched on something called hybrid models towards the end, didn't they? What was that about?
Yes, it was brief, but they mentioned hybrid models. These are essentially AI systems that try to combine different architectural approaches. For instance, maybe combining very large information-dense models good for knowledge recall with other types of models that are perhaps better at multi-step reasoning or planning, like a thinking part and a knowledge part working together.
Ah, okay. Trying to get the best of both worlds.
Exactly. It's seen as a promising direction for finding the right balance between, say, latency, how quickly the AI responds, and the depth or complexity of the processing it can do.
Interesting. So still lots of research happening there.
Oh, for sure. And as their conversation drew to a close, Nadella shared his final thoughts on what makes him optimistic about the future of AI, despite all the challenges and changes.
What was his big takeaway? What gives him hope?
His core optimism, he said, comes from the fact that software, and especially this new form of software, AI is the most adaptable, the most malleable resource we have for tackling really complex problems.
Malleable, meaning you can shape it easily.
Yeah, you can change it, improve it, apply it in new ways relatively quickly compared to, say, building physical infrastructure. He even quoted a line from a Bob Dylan song. Either you're busy being born or you're busy dying.
Meaning you have to keep adapting.
Exactly. To emphasize the need to embrace this period of rapid innovation and progress, to lean into the change, and his call to action was really directed at developers.
What did he urge them to do?
He urged them to lean into AI, to not be afraid of it, and to focus on building practical solutions for the many existing problems and real-world challenges we face. There's a huge backlog of things software could help with. He expressed his strong belief that it's these developers who will fearlessly drive the greatest benefits from this transformative technology.
So a message of hope and a challenge. Get out there and build and apply these incredible new AI capabilities to solve actual problems.
That was the closing sentiment.
Okay, let's try to bring it all together for our listeners then. It sounds like, first off, AI is advancing at just an astonishing rate, almost like it's on hyperdrive, to improvements happening across the entire technology stack, not just one thing.
Right, it's compounding.
And this rapid progress is making AI more efficient, more affordable, which is paving the way for entirely new kinds of deep application. And these intelligent AI agents that can actually do things and work together to handle complex tasks.
We also learned about the crucial roles that both open source and closed source AI models will play. It's not an either.
Right, we need both.
And platforms like Microsoft's Azure are aiming to support both, providing the essential infrastructure and tools like that Foundry app server concept.
And that distillation factory idea seems super important.
Hugely important, because it holds the promise of making advanced AI accessible to a much wider range of developers and enabling its use on all sorts of devices, not just in massive data centers.
And ultimately, this rapid evolution of AI has the potential to significantly boost our productivity, right? Not just in software development, but in many different kinds of knowledge work.
Yeah, changing how we interact with information and get things done.
Which could lead to major positive changes in our economy over the coming years.
Yeah.
But it's not automatic.
No, it requires not only the tech breakthroughs, but also us figuring out the best ways to integrate AI into our work processes or businesses, maybe even redesigning them like Ford did with electricity.
That adaptation piece is key.
Absolutely. And the conversation also highlighted how AI is making digital content much more adaptable, more malleable, potentially blurring those traditional lines between documents, apps, websites.
Leading to maybe more seamless and integrated user experiences down the road.
That's the hope.
Okay, so it's clear that even if you don't grasp all the intricate technical details, the trends that Zuckerberg and Nadella discuss point towards a future where AI is much more deeply integrated into our lives and the tools we use every day, with the potential to unlock really significant advancements in what we can achieve. But as Nadella said, this is really just the beginning, maybe past the horseless carriage phase, but still early.
Definitely still early days in the grand scheme of things.
And it's fascinating, maybe even a little bit daunting, to think about how these rapidly developing AI capabilities, especially these AI agents they talked about, might fundamentally reshape the nature of work and maybe even creativity for everyone in the years ahead.
It's a profound shift we're navigating.
Definitely something to think about long after you stop listening.
Indeed. And we will continue to deep dive into these important topics, trying to bring you clear and insightful understanding as this incredibly dynamic field continues to evolve at, well, hyperdrive speed. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks again, and see you in the next one.